All right, I'm going to share just some ideas about creating Seesaw activities. I'm going to try to keep this one pretty basic with some pretty simple ideas that you can use for creating activities in Seesaw. If you want a copy of these slides, here's the bit.ly. There's nothing I don't know, major in these slides. However, they're just kind of notes, I guess, so that you could look back later and kind of remember some of these sort of tips or ideas. So if you want to grab that, it's at bit.ly/activities, BEG, so activities for beginners, and then you can grab a copy of these slides. So just a couple of really pretty simple things. If you've looked at my Flipgrid collection of how-to videos, a lot of these ideas are shared in those kind of bite-sized chunk videos as well. But when we start making activities, I guess first of all, I would say the first thing I do, let me pop over to my teacher account here. When I start utilizing activities, the first place that I usually look is just in the either community or school and district library. So let's get into here. So I click on activities, scroll down and click browse activities. And then there's a ton of great things in the community here from Seesaw themselves. Lots of things that teachers from our district are adding into the school and district section if you have Seesaw for Schools. So this is a really great place to start. If you see something that you love, like it looks here that our friend Hillary Gannier has made some great wonders things, I could go ahead and just assign this to my students as is. Maybe I decide that I want to add some audio to my directions, or I want to add extra directions here for my students. I could click those three dots. Oh, sorry. First, I have to say, I really love this and get this kind of into my library. Then I can click those three dots and I could copy and edit that activity. And I could, again, tag skills in there. I could add my voice to it. I could add additional directions. Now, what happens is, my library now has a couple of copies of that. This isn't my favorite thing in the world, but it basically now saves Hillary's version. Oh, I didn't actually click copy and edit. So in theory, it would save Hillary's version and then it would save my copy and edited version. I could click here and actually then remove this one from my library. It's not deleting it because this was Hillary's. So it's just removing it from my library. The other thing that I can do in my activity library is put my activities into collections. So you kind of have to scroll down here. There's a little bit of confusion, I think, because a collection really is sort of like a folder for organizing your activities. So there's some confusion between what collections and folders are. So the collections in your activity library are basically just a way for you as a teacher to organize all of your activities. If you only have a handful of activities in here, this might not seem like a big deal, but I have 385 activities. So to try to search or browse through those is pretty overwhelming. So I went through and created several collections here. So now I can click on beginning of the year and find the things that I assigned there. So in order to put things into a collection, if I'm in that activity, I can either click the heart and then choose from the list where I would like that to go. Or in the three dots, I can also add to this collection. From here, I can easily create a new collection if I need to, and I can also create that collection from down here in the My Collections area. I could create a new one here at the very bottom. So a couple of organizational things there. So that's usually where I start. I think a lot of us right now are at home and using Seesaw to deliver a lot more content than we've normally done in the past. And so we're starting to make our own activities. So just kind of flip back over to the slides here. A couple of pretty easy things to do are add a PDF or add in images to create a template that your students are going to respond on. It's kind of new-ish in Seesaw that you can upload a PDF and have that still be available for students to write and draw even add pictures and things on top of. So that's pretty awesome. So I'm just going to call this PDF example. I would type my instructions here. Another thing I get asked about a lot are those little codes that you would use in your instructions to make those pictures come up. When we saw Hillary's a minute ago, there were some little picture icons in her directions. I put that in a bit.ly in these slides, bit.ly icon shortcuts. So if you go to this page, see, I'm just going to post it here. And once you go to this page, I would suggest just bookmarking it so you can find it often, because then as they update these, you'll have the updated ones. But these are just all the little codes that you would want to know. If I put in this code in my directions, the students would see this little picture. So those are just nice little tips to put those visual instructions there. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on my directions right now. I do recommend for young learners that we add our voice here. I think with them being at home, we can't assume that they have help. There's a lot of times when they still need to be able to work independently. So putting as many supports there as we can is really important. These two areas, it's important to know the difference. If you want students to respond to something, you need to put that in the student template. If you're trying to give them an example or some instructions, that would be your multimedia area. If you accidentally put something one place or the other, it's not super easy to just copy it and move it right over. So really be watching this part. So maybe as an example, I want to put a link to a story. Maybe on YouTube, I found a reading of an author, or maybe I have a math on the spot video. This would be a great thing to add in here as sort of your beginning of your lesson. As a teacher, you could film yourself doing a mini lesson. If it's a shorter-ish video, you could use the video tool right in Seesaw. Otherwise, I would record it elsewhere and then upload it as a link either from YouTube or even Google Drive. So this is a nice space to put, again, an example or maybe a link that you want them to visit first. Then the template itself would be what you want the students to do. So I already downloaded a PDF onto my computer. So I'm going to say upload. I can now say select from my computer. I know it's in my downloads. I'm just going to go ahead and grab this PDF really quickly. It's going to add the first 20 pages. So I do have the paid version of Seesaw. If my PDF is more than 20 pages, it's not going to add all of those pages. So it will add the first 20 pages of my PDF. A couple of questions that I'm getting. So when you add in a PDF, by default, this image is just going to be locked right here. I've had some people tell me that they want to make this a little bit bigger. You can click on this little hand, and now that gives me a menu where I can unlock this piece. I could move it. Maybe I want to slide it over here. I can grab those little circles. I could resize it however I want that to be. If I needed to flip it for any reason, I could do that. Oops. Now I've got it all goofed up. Once I have it where I want it, I would click those dots again and relock it. And that means that this is going to stay in place. I could also go through and get rid of pages I didn't need here. So I could click these dots and just delete those out of there if I don't need those. I could rearrange these pages. If I need to rearrange them, I can just kind of grab them and slide them around. And I'm not saying this is a perfect example, it's just something I kind of had sitting on my computer. The students now could use the pen right on top of here, and they could complete, like annotate, write on it. They could type right on it. They could still add these tools, upload pictures, take a picture. So it makes this editable, which it has not always been. So that's pretty cool. A little trick that I use with PDFs is opening them in Preview to make some edits. Preview is a free tool that you have on your Mac. I'm going to just open up one of these PDFs that I have already saved down here, and then this one. These are both pretty large. They wouldn't necessarily be something where I want all of this in an activity. But let's say I want to combine maybe part of this with part of this. I can kind of make some edits here. So I'm going to click on here. I'm just tapping on the thumbnail and hitting delete, and I'm getting rid of the pages that maybe I don't want to add into Seesaw, the stuff that I don't need. If I decided I actually want this page to be up here, I can grab it and I can rearrange it right here in preview. And then another super cool thing is, because I can only upload one PDF at a time to Seesaw, I can grab, and I sure hope that you see this on the screen. I could grab, so maybe I really want this page from this PDF. I can grab this thumbnail and drag it and drop it into this other PDF that I already had open. So now I'm combining PDFs. Once I get this how I want it, and underneath those 20 pages, I'm gonna make sure this is saved, and then I can upload this to Seesaw. So I've sort of mishmashed a couple of PDFs together to make one that I can upload into Seesaw and make that really super easy for me to make that activity. Okay, so in addition to PDFs, you can also make templates from images. Oh, and it looks like, there we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna, instead of opening a new activity, I'm just gonna delete what we have in here. So we can go from an image. So an image could be, you know, something you already have saved on your computer. Maybe you don't want to import a whole PDF. Maybe, I'll just open this up again. Maybe I just want this page. So rather than bring in a whole PDF, it's easier for me to just sort of screenshot this. So one thing that I do is I usually on my Mac go Command and the minus button. That's not working. So usually I have this open in a preview from my Google Drive, and what I do is Command and the minus button, and I kind of shrink it up until it's small enough for me to take a screenshot of. So I'm going to kind of just fudge a little bit. This is going to be tiny. I'm going to go Shift Command 4 and just take a screenshot of this tiny little thumbnail over here. That's not going to be ideal, but it'll still get the idea across. So maybe I just do a screenshot of that. Some people like to make activity templates in maybe Google Slides. Just because I have this open, I'll show you quickly. This is not an ideal example either, but let's say there was something on this screen that I wanted students to respond to. I'm gonna go File and download this as a JPEG. So I could grab just one of my Google Slides and bring that as an image. While we're in here, I'll also show you if you made multi-pages and slides that you want them to access, you could also download that as a PDF, and you could drag all of those pages in as a PDF as well. So once you have your image in your Seesaw, you can now upload, and then this time you're just going to bring in whatever that image is that you want students to be working on. And I'm going to click on the check mark. Same as before, when I upload it this way, it's going to bring in, it's going to be where it wants to be. If I want to move it, I'm going to do the hand, click on those dots, unlock it, and then I can move it and do what I want. You'll also notice that creating something, this is why in slides I always create it in landscape, how much better this fits than items that are vertical. They just fit so much better on the screen. A couple of tips, well, that was one of them, create your thing in landscape. That's tip number one. Another one is show your students this little zoom in tool. I'm not sure that a lot of them even know this is here, but let's say, I'm just gonna drag this one in small just to be silly. Let's say it's pretty little and it's hard to read the area that you want them to get to. If they click on this zoom tool and zoom in, they're gonna be able to come right up in that area and write whatever you want them to write, fill out a math problem, annotate the text, and then when they zoom out, those annotations will stay where they should be on that image. So that's a nice tool. Another one, let's say, see if I can kind of take this back to where it was when it first came in. When it was nice and big and taking up the whole screen, one of the problems you might encounter are these tools in the way. Another little trick that you can show your students is this little box up here will make those tools go away. As long as you've selected beforehand your marker or pen or whatever you're annotating with, you can still use that, but then you can see that whole screen without those tools in the way. So a couple of nice tricks. Another thing I get asked a lot is how to make maybe a movable activity. So I am going to get rid of all this. I'm going to delete that guy just so I have a blank space. So let's say I want to put a bunch of images onto this template so that students move them around to tell a story, maybe sequence a story, do a math problem. Sometimes if we're sequencing a story, we're taking maybe screenshots out of a book. If it's something they have access to, they can actually click here and take the photos themselves and arrange them. If I use clip art, I like to use a site where I know it's copyright free, free for me to use. One of my favorites is called Flat Icon. I'm going to go here to Flat Icon. There's tons of stuff that you can use here for free, and then there's some things that you need to upgrade to have access to. But I know when I search for images here, I'll be using things where I will not be in any kind of copyright violation if I'm using it. So I'm going to put in bunny. And the things that have the little crown are things that I'm going to have to upgrade to use. The other ones are free for me to use. So I'm going to click on that little guy. And I want it to be a PNG. What that means is it's going to have a transparent background. So my bunny isn't going to have like a little white box behind him. So I'm going to go ahead and just download that to my computer and then go back to Seesaw. I can either use the upload button and drag that in from my computer, or since it's sitting right here, I could just drag that onto my screen. Now, as long as I don't lock it, this is going to be free for my students to move around. If I'm doing like a math problem where I'm using this as a manipulative, I could click here and duplicate so that they have many of these. I can also highlight it and just do Command C and then Command V and duplicate as many as I need. These again would be here loose for students to complete. You might then add an element, maybe you're having them sort, put some inside the Easter basket and leave some out. Maybe you want to then search for an Easter basket. I don't know what I'm going to get here. Let's give her a try. Basket. I just want an empty basket. I'm just gonna grab that guy right there. Again, I'm just gonna, oh, look at that. I'm gonna download that one. Do the same thing, I'm gonna bring this in. This one I'm gonna make big because let's say I wanna move my bunnies onto here. One thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to make sure that in my order, this one is going to be in the back. Otherwise, when I bring those bunnies in, they're going to be behind it. What I want to do is be able to drag them like this so that they would be on top of the basket. So I sent that basket to the back. I'm also going to now lock the basket in place. I don't want students to move the basket, but I want them to be able to move the bunnies around. So just a rule of thumb, anything that you want the kids to be able to move on the screen is going to have to be uploaded as an individual image into Seesaw. Another great tool for doing this, I'm just going to add an extra page here, is utilizing the shapes that are right here in Seesaw. So I could add some, you know, hundreds blocks, tens blocks onto the screen and then give my students instructions to build a particular number. Again, I would just have these here ready for them. They could move them around. Maybe I'm going to copy and paste a bunch of these so there's more than one. But these would then all be movable manipulatives for my students to use. Another little quick note here is if you have something set up, so maybe on each of these pages, you're going to give them a number and then you want them to move these to build that number. Once you have this page built how you want, over here you can click the three dots and duplicate that page. So you don't have to rebuild this page every time. You could just change the number. So maybe on this page, I want them to build 215, and I'm gonna lock that number up here at the top. And then on this page, I could put a different number that I want them to build. So if you have something where it's gonna be similar, you could build it once and then just kind of duplicate it after there. Another nice little tip to know about is on each page, so let's say I was telling the little bunny story problem here. I wouldn't necessarily want the bunny story problem from this page in my main directions that are going to show up here, because maybe I have a different bunny story problem on every page. I'm going to use this little caption button down here to add a voice caption. I could read my bunny story problem or read the text from, you know, a page that I uploaded if I need students to have directions. I could read that down here. This gives them audio. I could do that on every page. So it would give them audio directions, or for accessibility, I'd be able to read text individually on every page. If I clicked on the microphone and did it that way, basically what's going to happen is this is a cool tool because it lets me make a screen recording. So like a student, if they were doing this, they could be putting the bunnies in the basket and recording and telling you about the bunnies, and it could be super cool. But what happens is it makes it into a video. So if I record my directions that way, it's now made this into a video, and the problem is my students aren't going to be able to edit that template. So I don't want to record on each page using the microphone if there's something on that screen that I want my students to be able to edit, manipulate, or do. Okay, I'm hopping back over here so I can look at my notes. Other things we can do are use templates that are already created. I put a couple of links here. These are a couple of really pretty amazing databases created by other teachers and shared out. This one that I'm taking you to right now is created by Chris Shiner and Beth Layton. Many of you have probably seen this before, but they have so many templates here ready to go. There's directions, there's lots of YouTube videos, but the idea here is kind of the same as what I showed you from my Google Slides. Find something you like. They have a lot of them already linked to Seesaw activities, so you don't even have to do this yourself. But you could also go File, again, download this as an image, and then pull this into your activity. So utilizing, again, the Seesaw activity library, and then finding these ready-made templates that are taking care of some of that work for you, I think is really great. We talked a little bit about creating right in Seesaw. One thing I didn't show you, I'm just going to add another page here. We looked at the shapes. The other thing that's really awesome are these backgrounds. So maybe I want them to work on letter writing. I can put this template right here. I could maybe draw a couple of example letters, and then their instructions are just to use the pen tool and practice their letters. So there's some nice things here. Another one I really like is these dots, just for doing some geometry, shape building. Draw your shapes and then label them. Use the microphone and tell, you know, the vertices, the number of sides, that kind of thing, some of the qualities. So there's some great built-in tools here that really enable you to easily make your activities without having to upload from other places. Maybe even just a blank page, and you could add text on here and say, you know, tell me the main character in the story you read today. I would kind of put this up here, drag it out. I can change the way this looks with these 3 dots. I can get rid of kind of the background. I can change the look of my text. I can change the colors. And then once I have it where I want it, again, I can lock that. And then the students can use just this blank space. So I could use this as a pretty just kind of open-ended area for creating my own activities right here. Maybe I ask them to just take a picture. Maybe they're working on some paper pencil work or workbook work, or you ask them in this activity to go on a shape hunt around their house and take photos. This template here, this space could be pretty open-ended, and then all they would do is use the camera to take pictures, and they can add multiple pictures to this canvas. So your activity itself does not have to be elaborate. You can keep it pretty simple and still very engaging, and great learning will be happening. We talked about searching the library. I'm also going to show you how to add to our library. So this amazing activity that I've created here, this big mishmash activity, I'm going to say save. And then if I wanted to put this into our school or district library, Once I have this activity saved, there's going to be 3 little dots down here, and I kind of have to scroll to see that share activity button. I could say share to school library, and then I would just plug in the appropriate grade level, subject, share, and then that would be in the school library and the district library for other teachers here in Billings to access. If you're wanting to share with your colleagues, most of you have this email to teachers button. You can click on that and just email directly from here. Some people are struggling with that. I'll tell you what I usually do is just copy this activity link, open up my email, and send this activity to the people that I want to receive it. I'm gonna hop back over. Excuse me. Let's see. Okay, there's another little example in here, and I'm not going to go into this, but I did link a YouTube video here using the kind of multi-page example section, or sorry, not multi-page, but multimedia example section here. One thing that teachers are struggling with is maybe I want my students to read an article and watch a video and maybe do one other thing before they complete an activity, especially with students being at home. Some of that direct instruction that I can normally do in the classroom, I kind of have to front load my activities with that, but I can only put one link or a video in here. So what some teachers are doing is coming up with these kind of creative choice boards using Google Slides, putting in images or links, and then just linking to that one document or slide. So then students have access to multiple links from there. There's more information and a really nice tutorial at this YouTube link if that's something you're curious about. A couple of little tips. Again, we already talked about the icon shortcuts. I would definitely bookmark that. Copying and editing. So if you see something that you like, but you kind of just want to make it yours, you can add that to your library and then copy and edit to sort of remix it. I usually try to utilize these teacher notes, and they're hiding down here. When I say more options, I usually try to utilize this to say who created the original activity, like that one I had grabbed from Hillary. I would put in here, original activity by Hillary Gannier, just to give her that credit since I'm copying what she had done. Record audio directions for students. Again, I think anything we can do to make this independent where they don't need to rely on their parents is really important. And then again, using the caption section in the template to read them information or text on a page. A couple of tips. We talked about collections in order to kind of keep your library a little bit more organized. Tagging skills or folders. So when I go to assign this activity, for specialists, this is really awesome, or people who are in multiple classes. I could send the same activity to multiple classes at once, so that's really nice. When I decide which class I want it to go to, over here, I can edit. So maybe I just want this to go to a couple of students, and I'm going to differentiate it for my class. So I could decide I just want these 2 students to receive it. I can also tag it into a folder. This is really nice because when they complete this activity, it will automatically go into the folder, and it's going to really help me kind of keep that journal a little bit more organized. So then if I'm just looking for math work, I could go in the math folder. If I'm the PE teacher, I can just look in the PE folder for those activities. And then skills. For those of us with paid Seesaw, I could also tag my proficiency scales or my skills from right here. With paid Seesaw, another thing I have that's nice is the ability to schedule. So we talked a lot with teachers I've been meeting with about how it can be a little bit overwhelming in their activity feed to get a whole bunch at once. So if you have the ability to assign these on a certain day, so maybe they're just getting 1 or 2 activities a day, this is super helpful. A couple of other things that I'm noticing, I'm gonna go back to class really fast and kind of hop down into this sort of practice class. In the activity feed, a lot of people ask me if they can organize this. No, you really can't. This is that student activity feed. I can't put it into a folder or collection and make it go away. I would kind of come down to the bottom of your feed and look and see if there is stuff sitting in here that you assigned a while ago and you just haven't gotten to. You might want to clean this up. Click those three dots. If students have responded, you can archive this. It will keep the responses, but then remove it from the feed. If nobody has responded, you'll be able to just delete this. It doesn't remove it from your activity library, but it's going to remove it from the feed here so that you're not going to constantly see these activities sitting in here. If your students are saying they still see they finished an activity and it's still here in the feed, check your settings. Your students should be signed in either one-to-one or email Google. If they're signed in as a shared device, it's as though it's not tracking, like it doesn't know when I sign in as Sloan, it doesn't know that I'm me. So this activity will still be sitting in here because it doesn't know necessarily that I already completed it. I'm not sure if that totally makes sense, but if you're having trouble with that, check your sign-in mode, make sure you're one-to-one or email or Google. That will make those activities disappear from this feed once your students have completed them and they won't see activities that they have already done. Trying to think of other little questions that I've heard a lot. Okay, I'm just going to pop this up here, I guess. If you do have questions, email me, piltzt@billingschools.org. Seesaw is offering tons of webinars. If you don't make a webinar live, they have recordings like this with lots of information. So bit.ly/Seesaw Learning. I feel like that's not the right bit.ly. Hold on. I feel like that's the one to, oh, no. Well, look at that. Okay, so bit.ly/Seesaw Learning is going to take you to their training and PD calendar. And so you can register here, download slides, watch recordings for lots of other tips and tricks. But I hope that that was helpful and answered some questions for you.